Well, today I am here with Dr. Sarah Diekman, who is joining us. She is an expert in POTS and dysautonomia, as well as a POTS patient. So welcome, Dr. Diekman. Thank you so much. You're so welcome. And today we're going to talk about research, the latest in POTS research. Something that I think is challenging and I'm curious if there have been any changes on this that's kind of challenging to navigate with POTS is exercise. And it's been almost people say to me, the word controversial really is what comes to mind, because for some people it can aggravate symptoms. For other people, it can make symptoms better. So it's kind of hard, I would imagine, to provide very detailed guidance on how to go about it. So I was wondering if anything, now that we have more of, a recognition that lots of people and lots of young people, are living with POTS, and lots of young people like to exercise, kind of, have you heard anything new in that area in terms of guidance, protocols, things like that?
Yeah, so I know a lot of institutions are working on better protocols, easier said than done. So we're still dealing with some of the same open access ones like the CHOP. But let me give you a little origin story so we can understand our past to understand where some of our baggage came from. So where did this whole exercise fixes POTS come from? It actually came long before POTS was even recognized as an illness. It was only named in 1990 at Mayo Clinic, somewhere in the 90s, which was an amalgamation of several previously named illnesses. Okay. So the name is very modern. Now, the origin of the exercise fixes everything came from the astronauts, the first astronauts to go to outer space. And these were super healthy humans because you weren't allowed to go up. It's not the same as nowadays where if you have $1 billion or whatever, they'll let anyone can go up there. It used to be you could not have, they were very worried about what's going to happen to human life up in space. So you couldn't need eyeglasses. You couldn't have one physical ailment. Your chart had to be totally a nothing burger. So these perfectly healthy people will go up to outer space, and they came back and they had what we now call POTS. And I believe it was Dr. Levine, and this is where the Levine protocol came from, found that they could exercise it away. So since their POTS was, but the difference is their POTS was 100% induced by a zero gravity environment.
Right.
So I tell my patients, for us, it comes from within.
Right, exactly.
It's from within. So for each POTS patient here on Earth who didn't have it induced by a zero G environment, and this is, by the way, why they have astronauts work out now when they're in outer space. So they come back and they don't have POTS anymore.
Wow.
Yeah, so they have protocols. So that was the birth of this. And for the astronauts, it was able to fix it all.
Sure.
But they didn't have autoimmune stuff or rheumatologic, whatever the true origin is for POTS patients. And it's probably multiple causes. We're probably ultimately going to find that there's different subtypes of causes. But for all of us, it's a different cause, and there is different exercise tolerance. Okay. Now, some people, so it really takes one of two paths. People either need to pace, which pacing is for the most severe exercise intolerance. This basically means that exercise is toxic to them. And in another important origin study, so besides this origin of exercise fixes everything, that led to a study, I believe it was called the PACE study, that caused a lot of harm because this was a study of myalgic encephalomyelitis, formerly known as chronic fatigue syndrome. Also, that said, like, exercise fixes everything. Mm-hmm. But the problem was they really, they didn't do I think they would have needed to do an intention to treat analysis, and they didn't. So basically they disregarded the dropouts. Like, people were getting so sick, they dropped out.
my goodness.
And so what you're left with is survival bias. So survivors survive. And so the people who are well enough to survive the exercise survive to the end of the trial. And then you can erroneously conclude that exercise made them better if you don't analyze, like, why did people drop out?
Yeah.
So the PACE trial was published and was treated as like gold standard for ME CSF for a long time. And that was really harmful to a lot of patients. And there's a lot of overlap between ME CSF and POTS. Another controversy, because it's like endless with POTS, is, are they two separate illnesses? If a POTS patient meets ME criteria, like, do we name it differently? Is that part of the POTS? Because almost all POTS patients will meet some level of ME criteria. We usually don't really get into the weeds on it until someone is into the moderate to, or at least that's the way I practice clinically, because everyone has at least mild ME. But so, yeah, the paths diverge in whether or not somebody really, really gets sick when they exercise, or if they're exercise intolerant, but able to progress. So exercise intolerance is part of POTS, but for some people, it can make them feel much better, myself included. So I'm one of those. But that is not everybody. So as a clinician, I have to carefully assess with each person how, like, I take a history and start off with my best analysis of how they're going to tolerate exercise. And then we keep reevaluating. Is this helping? Is this hurting? So it can, the door swings both ways, but a lot of people have a lot of trauma from this history of exercise cures everything, being massively gaslit, harmed.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
for taking the time to talk with me and to share with our community. We greatly appreciate it.
It is my pleasure. Thank you for everything that you do.